New question, member from Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thanks. My question is to the Premier. Premier, earlier this year you said you were going to take middle-class tax hikes off the table. But then, just weeks later, you turned around and slipped an excessive new tax hike into your budget, which will be imposed on all passenger and cargo flights.
Yeah.
Once this tax is in effect, the cost of goods will rise and Ontario flights will become the most expensive in Canada. So, Premier, do you still think your aviation fuel tax won't affect the middle class, or are you just hoping Ontarians miss what you're really up to?
They're happy in Buffalo and Sierra.
Minister of Economic Development, Employment and
Minister of
Infrastructure.
Economic Development, Employment and Infrastructure.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And yes, this is part of the budget that we'll be tabling later today. And, Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is we're going to build public transit in this province. We're going to invest $29 billion, Mr. Speaker, over the next number of years to do that. And it does require some revenue tools, Mr. Speaker. At least we've laid out where the revenues are going to come from, and it's very clearly in the budget. And yes, it is challenging, and it will be challenging for the sector. But, Mr. Speaker, we need those revenues to invest in building public transit. Unlike your approach, Mr. Speaker, was to find those revenues by laying off 100,000 public servants, Mr. Speaker. That's where your savings were going to come from. We do have revenue tools. They're part of the budget, Mr. Speaker. It's never easy, and I don't expect any sectors that are impacted by those revenue tools to be pleased with that. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, it's in the interest of ensuring that we build public transit in this province that we need to make these challenging decisions.
Supplementary.
Yes, so back to the Premier again. Premier, in your desperate race to raise more revenue, you've put forward another punitive tax hike
Race to the bottom.
without any consideration of its economic consequences. In fact, the airline industry says when it asked you for an economic impact assessment on your aviation fuel tax, you couldn't provide one. Premier, we all know it's the policy of your government to tax first and ask questions later. But you still have time to chart a new course. So, Premier, will you do the right thing and remove this tax hike from your budget, or will you recklessly move forward with no regard for middle-class Ontarians and our economy?
Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our budget was clear and our platform was clear. And, Mr. Speaker, we're going to build public transit in this province. And it's not easy, but we've laid out a path to get us there, unlike the member opposite and his party, and unlike the other opposition party, Mr. Speaker. It's not easy, and we're going to have to work together as a province, and we're going to have to work with our business community. And in this case, Mr. Speaker, the aviation sector, Mr. Speaker, we will work with the airlines to ensure they can adjust to these challenges. But, Mr. Speaker, this tax hasn't been touched since 1992. They're paying less over as a percentage than other fuel, Mr. Speaker, in our economy. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, in order to ensure the competitiveness of our economy and our quality of life, we need to invest $29 billion, Mr. Speaker, in public transit and transportation in this province. We're going to get that job done. It's not going to be easy, but we've laid out a path to get there, Mr. Speaker. And I commend the budget that we're just about to bring forward and ask for your support.
Thank you.